Hello and welcome to the latest in the Leaders with Ambition podcast series. Today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome my guest, Kelly McKinnon, who's Chief Marketing and Business Development Officer for Gibson Dunn. And it is going to be an amazing podcast today. I think Kelly is one of the most positive and upbeat people I have ever met. More to come about the pom-poms later. Today, we'll talk through Kelly's career, which sees her starting as a very closely making the Olympic hockey team to transitioning into marketing and BD in professional services. We'll look at discussing how Kelly's evolved from management to leadership, and also how committed she is to building people's careers. And that's through lots of different things, mentorship, coaching, and also there's been a lot of sponsorship that's helped Kelly in her career as well, which I think is great because she really wants to pay this forward. She'll discuss the importance of investing in one's own career. And Kelly's had her own executive coach, which again, I think really is very unusual with people with sports backgrounds as well, because they recognize the importance of coaching. But the amount of hard work, commitment, dedication that it takes to be at this level in a law firm. Kelly's been really intentional in her career moves and also really thought about making sure that her due diligence has been there, because culture in firms is everything these days. And there's lots of different kinds of culture in lots of different firms, and it's finding what works for you. We'll talk about networking, which again is something that Kelly is very good at, and her time within the LMA. And I think one of the things I've really enjoyed getting to know Kelly more is her talking about not just growing one's network, but also nurturing it and finding your tribe, because that's what you need to do to build that real psychological safety around you. We'll also go through Kelly's mantra of getting to know partners, which again is something that she holds very dear. But also thinking about where is the value in what we're offering in marketing and BD, and how will this increase revenue? And along the way, how she sprinkles positivity into every single interaction that she has. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kelly to bring her career history to life for us. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It is such a pleasure to be here and share my journey with all of you. As you can see with some of the sports pictures in the back, sports has played a huge role in my life and really getting me, I think, to where I am in my career. So Nikki alluded to my hockey history, which I actually was an Olympic hopeful, both for field hockey and ice hockey, a little bit closer in ice hockey, but really grew up playing those team sports and worked with the New York Islanders, practiced with them. And so I played at a super high level. And I had the unique opportunity as well to coach overseas. So I graduated from Brown.
Yeah, you went to China.
Yes. So I ended up going to Brown University to play ice hockey there. Yes. At that point, women's ice hockey was not the broad sport that it is today. So Brown University was one of the few schools that had a team, and their team was absolutely spectacular. So I went to Brown thinking that I was going to be a history teacher and an ice hockey coach. And I found kind of my niche in terms of marketing at Brown when I had the opportunity to do a internship at Condé Nast Sports for Women. And when I graduated, I realized at that point I had not made the Nagano Olympic team in 1998, where the U.S. women took a gold.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, no.
I know. I didn't. I had teammates who had made the team and were on the ice for that. And so my dad, who is a lawyer, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. He said to me, okay, kiddo, what do you want to do with your life? So I ended up having the opportunity to work at Bon Appetit magazine in their promotions, events, and marketing group, which was such an amazing opportunity, fresh out of school until the National Hockey League called. And I had the absolute privilege of stepping into a role. Instead of getting puck shot at me, I was now working behind the camera with all of the broadcast rights holders, which was this amazing, unique opportunity really to be part of the sport that I loved and continue to grow my career. Unfortunately, the owners locked out the players. After the 2004 seasons, I was one of several who lost their jobs. And when one door closes, one always opens.
Yeah.
I did not know that door opening was going to lead me to China. So I had the unique opportunity to move to China to be I call it the interim head coach of the Chinese women's national team. What an amazing, amazing experience. I was not expecting it. I got a phone call on Monday morning, completely out of the blue, and moved about 8 days later once my visa came through. Really, truly a lesson of using, how do you communicate in a language that you do not speak? And I speak a little bit of Spanish, but Spanish, English is completely different from Mandarin. So leveraging the assets that I had who spoke English, being able to communicate using your tone of voice, your facial expressions, and really just kind of your body movements. It was an absolute amazing experience. So now when I came home, my dad said, okay, kiddo, no, now we really need to go get a job. And that is where I really kind of forayed into professional services in the marketing. My dad said, if you can get Mike Modano to do an interview after he just lost a Stanley Cup final game, I think you can get a lawyer or a partner to do what you need them to do. So I looked around, interviewed, and did some informational interviews with partners at law firms. And then I ended up at Deloitte in their Northeast Consumer Business Group. And then I had a recruiter find me on monster.com and introduce me back in those days and introduced me to the world of law firms. And when I got to Paul Weiss, that was my first law firm job. I kind of said to myself and to my dad, who smiled, he always thought I'd take the LSATs, but at least I ended up in a law firm. And I really found my home of working with really, really smart people who are forward looking, who are ambitious, who want to continue to grow. And I started at Paul Weiss. I was at Paul Weiss for 8 years. I started off as a baby legal marketer and worked my way up a lot of it.
A great firm to start at as well, though, Kelly. Yeah. I mean, obviously you've got Deloitte, you've got one of the big four. Yes. When you started marketing and BD, then you decide you're going to transition into law, and wow.
Yeah. Yes. I was super, super fortunate to end up at Paul Weiss, and Paul Weiss has been a firm that has constantly been on an upward trajectory, and to walk in the time that I did, where they were an amazing, amazing litigation powerhouse and still very much building their corporate practice. It was a spectacular time to be part of the growth and the build of that team. I was part of bringing on client service interviews and launching their client team program, which was amazing to be working with really smart lawyers who are successful with what they do. And then they're open to hearing these ideas and suggestions and allowing us business professionals really to come in and help get them to that next level, it was amazing. Like, when you're like, I'm here. I found my professional home.
And I loved it.
And I got the bug. And that's where like I said, I spent about 7.5, 8 years at Paul Weiss. I went to Cleary for a short stint, and then I ended up at Fried Frank and really continued my growth there of stepping into leadership. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that, and had a wonderful time at Fried Frank. It's a absolute fantastic firm, a bit smaller than the firms I had worked at and very New York centric at that point. So it was an interesting dynamic in terms of stepping into a little bit higher leadership role, and how do you build a team there? You'll see there's a lot of build as part of my resume. So going into Fried Frank, being there for almost 7 years, starting as just the transactional lead, stepping into taking the litigation side of the house. And then as we've had CMO transitions, really kind of stepping in to that number one seat, albeit interim, just to make sure that the team is moving and grooving. And then Sherman, and then here to Gibson Dunn, which has been absolutely fantastic and quite the build for the past 3 years.
Which I love. And when you look back on your career, your career's not over, it's still going forward. Can you believe it? As you say, you were in China at one stage, and now you've got this amazing career that you've worked incredibly hard for as well. But when was the moment? Did you mention that Paul Weiss, you found home, you found the people, you found the industry that you wanted to work in. But when do you think it all started to come together, when you thought, this is it, I'm going to achieve that number one spot of a big firm?
I don't know if it ever. I mean, I'm the type of person I've been so fortunate to have amazing mentors along the way. I've been given opportunities, which I have absolutely worked for, but I do always laugh where somebody's like, I was like, me? And I do think, though, it's owning your space and owning what the achievements that you have, and then completely staying humble. And that's something that I am a complete athlete, team athlete. I could not have gotten to where I am without amazing teams who've worked for me, with me, alongside me. But there is a moment, and a good friend of mine, Anna Padavani, who I worked with at Paul Weiss, mentioned this during a CMO panel recently that her and I were together with. She said to me, when you were a baby legal marketer, you kind of opened up the door. We sat next to each other and she goes, you said to me, I'm going to be a CMO someday. I don't remember it, but I did giggle because that definitely sounds like the spunky Kelly that I know and love. But it's definitely a journey. And we're going to talk a little bit about being intentional in your career. But I think when I got to Gibson Dunn, being on this global platform with a firm that is absolutely spectacular on the legal side of the house and with huge opportunities on the administrative side to continue to grow and elevate, I think at that point I was like, "Oh, wow!" Right? I felt like I'd finally made the team, and I'm like there, and I'm making an impact. And I still have a ton to learn. We're going to talk about technology and looking forward and the pace of change is happening right now in the industry and in the world. There's still so much to do. So, once you make a team, you got to keep yourself on that team. So I'm constantly looking for that next thing.
And so, talking about that then, this leadership piece, so from management to leadership. And I know that you were, even at a young age, as part of the various teams that you were part of, you tended to be a leader of those teams. It's always inherent in you, isn't it? But, how important has that been for you over the years when you transitioned from manager to leader, and how you then interacted with those teams?
Yeah. Something that I think cannot be overlooked is the hours that you need to put in. Doing the work, obviously, but also creating the relationships and getting the buy-in. And I look back at the teams where I have been a part of and have had the opportunity to lead, whether I've had, to keep in the sports analogies, a C or an A on my sweater, or just as someone who is that strong voice in the locker room. It's doing the hard work and then creating those relationships. So I'll give an example. So I go to Brown. I have this amazing, amazing hockey career coming in, a really spectacular field hockey career. And the scale tipped when I went to college. Is my ice hockey career kind of flattened out and my field hockey career took off. But I was still part of the ice hockey team. And it was, we were number one in the country 3 out of my 4 years at school. Really, you wanted to be part of it. And so when I was coming into my senior year, we had brought in this spectacular freshman goaltender as a goaltender. And you're like, okay, well, I need to figure out how I, Kelly McKinnon, can help propel this team. It may not be me being on the ice. So I took my job of head cheerleader to the nth degree, as those who know me will understand. And I really became that driver in the locker room and in the huddle. So we would go into the huddle, and before the game would start, and we'd all crowd around, and I would have some saying, right? So it would be final, this is it, third period, nail in the coffin, let's finish this game. And I would pull a hammer out of my hockey pants, right? And that is where, right? Or let's turn the screws to them, and I'd pull out a screwdriver. And it's finding a way. And when I give presentations about leadership, it's every jersey matters on the ice, whether you are the one that's getting all of the ice time, or you're the one who never comes off the bench, but you're cheering, you're keeping everybody going. At the end of the day, we did not win that championship. We came runner-up. But on that runner-up, it's still a nice big trophy at the rink. Nobody says that Kelly touched the ice all of 30 seconds, right? That is done as a team. So that is something that, as you think about leadership and moving from that manager to the leader position, it's how do you continue to morph yourself and elevate yourself to be that leader that you want to be? The other piece of it too is leveraging opportunities, and everything doesn't go by script. We all wish this was a Hallmark movie, and we know that, the kiss is going to happen an hour and 15 minutes in. I have had the distinct pleasure of, again, thanks to mom and dad and a lot of my mentors from being younger is really taking opportunities where they come. I did not come to Gibson Dunn thinking I was going to sit in this seat. I have been opportunistic. And when people say, hey, we have this opportunity here, do you think you can work on X project? We didn't get a goaltender in for field hockey. Do you mind putting the pads on because you're really good at ice hockey playing goaltender? It's really taking the opportunities that, of course, your hard work has afforded to you, but sometimes the universe just sends you opportunities, and it's really finding them, embracing them, and just driving really forward hard with them. So that's the other thing is people think about where the trajectory of their career is. There is no script at times, and it's really finding those opportunities and harnessing them and using them for all that you can.
And as you know, we mentioned earlier, it's also being intentional about it, though, making sure that, you say, everything that you're saying here, take opportunities, but you've got to work incredibly hard, haven't you, to get the opportunities in the first place. And then to make those work.
Yeah. As I look at my career too, there were times where I could have taken opportunities, whether to leave a firm or take a different position. And there were steps that I wanted to take to make sure that when I finally got to this first chair, I was fully prepared. I had put all the work in and really could bring my whole self to the role, not only for my partners, even more so for the teams. It was really important to me to be LMA president, and that did, just being honest, at times play into, as I was thinking about my career path and opportunities, is really wanting to harness LMA for all that it could help me in terms of my growth, as well as give back to so many folks, mentors, and those kind of coming along in the industry that gave me my start. So it is that intentionality too.
Yeah.
I love that you brought that up. It's not just, opportunity, right?
Yeah,
it's really thinking about it and making sure. And just because it's not what you thought it was going to be, it's okay sometimes to pivot. I look at how I ended up here from a sports background, but really to take those opportunities, really evaluate and consider what we are all risk adverse, those who are in this industry, just given the nature we're around lawyers all the time, but making sure that we are intentional moving forward. It's a great point.
And I think, it's interesting talking about the LMA there as well. And I know, as I said, that you were really involved in the LMA and got to the LMA presidency, which is fantastic. But you pay it forward so much, don't you? With your skills, with your time, with the coaching, with the mentoring, with the networking. How do you do it all?
I'm insanely organized, a little too organized at times. So LMA, and it can be any professional association. And I'd encourage everybody who is listening to this to find, as I shared with it, like your tribe. Wow. And a professional organization not only isn't going to give you learning opportunities and industry connections, it's going to give you the opportunity to grow professionally. And as I think back to how I was able to have such a quick trajectory, the big thing for me, and when you're at a bigger firm, I know it sounds a little counterintuitive. At times you don't have the opportunity to manage a lot of folks when you're younger. And when I was moving from Paul Weiss to Cleary, that was one of the big pieces of the Cleary job that attracted me, was the ability to manage a much bigger team than I had at Paul Weiss. And when I got that question from the folks who were interviewing me at Cleary, I was like, well, I am running the LMA New York chapter at this point, and really running a board of, I think we were about 10 to 12, and then all of your volunteer leaders. So that is something that I've really harnessed LMA as a professional association, is to help me get those skills that I may not have the opportunity to do day to day, to really get me to that next level. And then I also too, I want to encourage people to connect with folks. And I look back on the nights I probably could have gone home a little bit earlier, and those relationships that I've created, those still last today. And I am so fortunate to be in this seat because of a former LMA president who happened to be a CMO at one point at Gibson, who made the introduction to me and our chair right now. So it's that network and connecting with people. And I love to do that too. That's my big thing, of really meeting young in their career, of coming into the industry early on and connecting them to folks who are really smart, who've seen everything, who are really forward looking, because there is such an opportunity for us to kind of bring up the next generation.
Yeah, I love that. And how important is it for people to do this earlier on in their careers? So as you say, you're trying to pinpoint to people and say, get involved in this.
Yes, it's extremely important. This is a tough job. And having folks where you can connect with who understand the pressure that you're under on a day-to-day basis, working with folks who truly are. I mean, they need to, in so much of their career, lawyers need to be perfect or as close to perfect as they can be. Having that network to connect with folks is absolutely huge, and creating the ability to understand what the best practices are. And again, I come back to all of my opportunities to move. It has all come through connections that I've known throughout the industry. So I wouldn't wait. I'd get in. It's also fun. And as you think about investing in yourself, this is a huge opportunity for you to continue your career path and put that work in.
I love that. And investing in yourself is something we touched on earlier on. So you've had mentors throughout your career, you've had sponsors, but you have also, again, I'm using the word intentional, but you got out and got an executive coach.
I did.
Why did you feel the need to do that?
Well, as athletes, we always have coaches. You never just kind of go off. And even as an adult, I've had, coaches when I've played Masters field hockey. I think that there's a huge opportunity for us to continue and grow. And there are times when we get so in what we're doing, and having someone who can help you take a step back and see big picture, I think is really important. So when I got elevated to the number one role at Gibson Dunn, I had a very wise mentor who said to me, hey, what do you think about getting an executive coach? And I had always thought about it. And I was like, you're right. You are absolutely right. It's a game changer. And the other thing that I did too, which I did it myself. So it wasn't through the firm. It wasn't firm sponsored. It was really important to me to invest that money and, frankly, the time into taking that next step. And I found a fantastic coach who really helped me see things differently. She also has done a lot of work on finding joy in work, which is something that is extremely important to me. So having somebody who can not only help you think about strategically, how do you go about this, or communicating X, she also helped me really hone back in on what my values are and what I want to have in a job when it comes to fulfillment and finding joy. I always say this is a job, but you want it to be fun. And so really having that person, again, completely not related to Gibson Dunn, kind of give me that outside perspective, that was huge.
You did it for yourself as well, which is great, isn't it? For your professional and personal life will have impacted. But did you have your pom-poms on your desk before or after the coach helping you find joy?
Those have been following me for a while. I am someone who does always try to find the silver lining in anything. There's always a positive take on everything, every situation that life throws you. So the pom-poms have been following me through a couple different firms. Helpful, again, to have somebody who steps back and helps you see sometimes past what is just the next kind of fire drill that's coming down the pike.
Yeah. Which happens in your line of work. There's always so much going on, isn't there? You've got to sometimes be able to compartmentalize it. And as you say, you use your team around you. And I know you're very big on ensuring that you've got people around you with different skill sets and different strengths. And as you say, you're such a team player, aren't you? Which makes a big difference.
How do you assemble a team? And at Gibson Dunn, again, fabulous firm, huge opportunity for us to build out the marketing and business development function. And when I got here 3 years ago, huge opportunity to make that build. And really, as I've gone through and being very intentional about the type of people that I bring in, one, for their skill sets, I use the analogy of you cannot have all forwards. You need to have your middies, you need to have your defense and your crazy people, the goaltenders, is you need to make sure as you look at that team that they've got all those different skill sets. And the other thing too is really just joy of what they want to do, finding that ambition, pun intended.
I like that. Yeah, I'll keep that in.
the drive, and really making sure that I interview every single person that I hire.
No.
And it's not because I don't entrust those that are hiring, that are part of my team is hiring, is I want to make sure that they are going to fit into this, world domination team that I'm building. And B, I also want them to feel the energy and kind of know what they're coming into is this amazing team that is on this journey to really do big things. So it's important to me to make sure that I have those conversations and that we have, everybody, as I said before, every jersey plays a role in the game that we're playing. And I want to make sure that people feel that.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that one of your mantras is this best in class, isn't it? You want to make sure that every single person has a part in achieving that, which goes into fundamentally helping the firm grow and continuing to give the partners what they need. So I think it's a really great mindset that you've got around that. Touching then on the burnout or stroke imposter syndrome. How do you cope with, because I know you work incredibly hard, as we say, and I know that your weeks are busy weeks. What do you do? How do you cope?
Well, I like to go to CrossFit and throw heavy things around. It's a lot. Stepping into these roles at any point with working within a marketing and business development team at a law firm are tough roles. And partners, quality, they expect the best, especially at a top tier firm like Gibson Dunn. I am very fortunate to have an amazing team around me. I am someone who leads very much with authenticity. So it's communicating with them. Sometimes we go, right? Where you're just like, oh, and, having a moment and then saying, okay, how are we going to move that forward? I leverage a lot of what we call my tribe, those that are in the industry who sit in similar seats, just to ask, how did you address something like this? And, usually it might be over a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, but it is a tough job. And the other piece of this too is I am a very outward person. I'm a big personality. You saw my pom-poms. I do find time to just sit quietly and refill my cup, usually watching some Netflix and curled up on my couch. But it is important for me, and I think everyone, to take that kind of step back and find something that's going to refill their cup. You touched on imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Have you suffered from it?
Oh, imposter syndrome. People would probably fight me on it. I think everyone who is truly succeeding has moments where they go, ooh, right? There is a couple of people in my life, my doorman in the morning is like, fake it till you make it, right? And I think there is so much of that is we are high achievers who want to be ahead of the curve, want to see around those curves, and truly want to deliver the best for our partners and frankly for our team. And I wouldn't be human if I didn't sometimes go, oof, right? Me? Yeah. Right? You're looking to me for the answer? I don't, I usually stoically do that in my head, but it's real. And that's where I think as we continue to grow as an industry and address some of the challenges with burnout and the demands that this role and frankly this industry, it's leading with authenticity, understanding and knowing that you're human, you are not AI, and that you're going to have moments where you need to step back or moments of doubt, and having that quiet confidence to then say, okay, I hear you, imposter syndrome, but we got this and we're going to go forth and dominate the legal industry, as I like to say.
I love also, as you mentioned, that having your people around you, people in seats like yours that actually get it and understand it. And you can have that conversation and helps you breathe again. It does really make an impact, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And I think the other thing too is you've got teams who are also under a lot of pressure, and being authentic with them. Obviously being professional and approaching things and being authentic and leading with authenticity is something that I truly lean hard into. I like to say I like to sprinkle the Kelly with whatever I do. Is you're always going to get professional, always ambitious, and I'm going to lead with my own style and make sure that I am real and human to the team. Partners, obviously, you're real and human with, but I think the team, when they see you as a human, they want to follow you.
Yeah. And it's essential that you can build that, isn't it? Because that trust factor is essential for teams. Otherwise, you're not going to have a highly effective team, which you do need in a firm like yours, don't you?
Yeah. in any firm, you want to have a team, and that trust factor needs to be high because it's a demanding job. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So what about your personal and professional qualities then? What do you think is inherent in you that has helped for you to be successful in your career?
So if no one has done the Clifton Strength Finders, you need to go do this. It is something that we did way back when with LMA, as they were thinking about board compositions. And what I love about that is it truly gives you where you are strong. And instead of trying to fix things, it in essence gives you, these are your strengths that you can really lean in on. My top two, which are going to be no surprise to you, are woo and positivity. So able to help gain consensus, bring people along, and obviously my positivity. And then I also too, and I talked a little bit about working with my executive coach and to really hone in on my values of what I want at work, which is joy, which is excellence, independence, loyalty, and positivity. And that's where I think as I've had my career and I've had a couple short stints at firms, it's making sure that you hone in on those values and that as you continue with your career, you've got places that really have that match with those values, which is really important in terms of the culture. So I know I went a little bit off question there, but I think in terms of those, that's important. And then mom and dad, man, you're killing me with this work ethic. I think that's a huge thing as well. And I do want to emphasize that getting to where I am and sitting in the first chair, it does take a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of hard work, not only being able to get the work done, because there's a lot of work, the amount of time I've spent investing in relationships with partners and making sure that I'm there for that practice group happy hour or kind of walking the halls. I come into the office quite often. I think it's really important to get to know the partners. And one big thing for those watching who knows me well, I always say, what's the question behind the question? And understanding the drivers behind people. And that is a lot easier when you actually know folks and you can understand kind of how you can lead them to where you need them to be.
It's such a good point. I also think your culture point as well, because actually, looking at managing multi-generational teams as you do, the Gen Z is coming through now. Culture is actually higher than most of the things when they're considering firms. So building this culture that people can actually see. And I think, it's not just a tick box exercise with you. I think it's, you are really authentic. People are aware. And that makes such a huge difference, doesn't it?
Huge difference. And the transparency in communicating that culture. And that's something that a very wise sponsor, I did a weekly email, and it's just communicating, even if it's just letting people know that we had a new lateral partner or we have a new team member coming, having that transparency. And of course, there's Kelly sprinkled in there, and having that constant communication. They're going to get it every single Friday, unless I am in some remote location, which has only happened. I think I've missed 1 or 2 Fridays. But it's having that constant communication.
Consistency is key as well, isn't it? These things. It's so essential.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I completely agree with you. Love that. So we talked about the importance of continuous learning, which is something that you mentioned at the start. You mentioned obviously with your executive coach as well, but you're a great believer in this as well. How do you then encourage your teams to do this?
So one, I want to make sure that they have access to LMA or other learning sources. And we're very fortunate. Gibson Dunn is very committed to continuous learning and their stipends and wanting to encourage people to take advantage, to leverage all of the knowledge that LMA has, and also thinking a bit outside the box. And that's something that, especially given the pace of change in the world right now, look at Square, AI in the base right now, is making sure that we as an industry, we're always looking to not only for folks who've done it well in the industry right now, what other lessons can we take from different industries so we can see and say, okay, hey, that may work for consumer products. We are not selling toothpaste. And what is kind of the question behind the question of why they're doing this, and see if we can apply this to what we do. So there's always that support and that push to connect. And then the other piece of this is connecting with other folks. And I do think that we are very fortunate to be in an industry that truly appreciates that peer-to-peer learning and always encouraging folks to continue to tap into that as much as they can.
That's good. Do you think it was a benefit earlier on in your career then to be a part of the Big Four, then transitioning into a law firm? Is that so? Because, lots of people stay in law, get into law and stay in law.
Yeah, and that was the Big Four. And I spoke with somebody late last week in my recruiting process, and the Big Four really truly is far ahead of where legal is. There's lots of lessons that we can take from those organizations, just in terms of pipeline management of the client teams, how they position actual business professionals to go out and have meetings with clients. Some of the smaller, nimbler firms are probably out there doing that right now. We are a 2,000 person law firm that is definitely undergoing a transformation in our marketing and business development function. But it is drawing that process. There's definitely a Deloitte method when I was at Deloitte, whereby you went and approached targets, and having some of that process and thinking about the structure of which we do things rather than just, I like to say, throwing spaghetti at the wall. That piece of it and that mindset, I think, has been really helpful in my career and those who've come over, which I know several have from consulting.
I do love your analogies. They always get me. I think they're fabulous. Spaghetti at the wall. I know exactly what you mean. And what about then? You're a successful woman. What does success mean to you? What does it look like for you? Because outsiders looking in are going tick, 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 tick.
You come back to best in class, and I am a type A athlete. So I do like to be part of best in class organizations and teams that really are highly functioning when I'm at the firm. And I always say this whenever I give a presentation: at the end of the day, this is a business. So we need to make sure that we're driving revenue. And I want people to, and I want the team to really feel like they are growing and thriving under team that I am and have created. So making sure that the team is happy and growing and doing neat and cool things, and that people truly are empowered. And that's where I think when you sit in the number one seat, empowering people, giving them the opportunity to do things, obviously with management and guidance. But that is really, it makes my eyes light up when I coach somebody to approach something and they do that, and then we have a big win. There is nothing better than having somebody go do that. I use the analogy again, my goaltender is, at the end of the day, if I've had a spectacular game, if I've not touched the ball once or made a save. And some folks may go, really? Because as a goaltender, you see the whole entire field and you are able to help set people up and call plays and call people all around to pick up a new player or jump in the play here. And if I am successful at organizing the team and encouraging the team and I don't touch the ball, well, first of all, I've had a clean sheet. So we love that. And it's empowering people to really get to their best. And then the last piece of it in terms of what success looks like is enabling people to bring their full selves to work. That is very big for me. It is huge for me. It's actually really important to our firm too, in terms of really encouraging authenticity and entrepreneurship. Seeing that and seeing people grow and thrive, nothing makes me happier.
I love that. And I think if you're going to be really innovative, you have to be your true authentic self. Otherwise, you're holding something back. You're not going to get the best out of everyone. So it's so important, isn't it?
Exactly.
And what about at the moment? There is so much stuff happening in law firms with your network, CMO network, CMPTO network. What are the challenges that you are finding more so than others at the moment?
So there really are, I'd say, three. One is talent retention. There is, and I am seeing the impact of COVID, of folks either stepping away or that big drastic shift from in-office to non-in-office. Finding talent who are excited to do this, who have the characteristics and really want to lean into working for a law firm. It's tough. Lawyers are wonderful and fabulous. And I'm the daughter of one, so they are lawyers. in finding that right fit of a person to come and then making sure that we can keep them. That is top of mind constantly.
There's a culture piece and the authenticities, all the things that you're doing. Yeah. It's all about the pom-poms, I'd say.
It is all about the pom-poms. Everybody's going to be running out and buying pom-poms. There's going to be a run on pom-poms. And just the increasing scope of all of our roles. And how can you get it all done in a workday that is probably much longer than people think? But those increasing scope of the roles, and that goes from the number one chair all the way down, that is a challenge because you've got to keep the trains running. And more, which is a fantastic thing, the lawyers are leaning in to leveraging us as strategic advisors. So kind of across the industry, you're seeing the skill set needed at several different levels kind of grow. And then lastly, holy moly, is technology coming for us. And I recently did a spotlight where I talked about the impact of AI. And I very much view AI as a jetpack. It will not replace us. There is no replacement for a pleasantly persistent marketing and BD person standing outside your door, making sure that something gets done. And it's a tool. And that's where, as I think about going back to the scope of our roles, leveraging all the technology that we can to be more efficient, to continue to elevate the work product and the ability to provide strategic guidance. We've got to use every single tool in our tool belt, or a hockey pants, going back to my old original a long ago, is how do we then leverage technology to drive forward? But it's happening. It's happening at the speed of light. So how do we then stay in front of it? And then lastly, it's the globalization. And again, I sit in a different seat than those who sit in a smaller regional firm, but really connecting those dots. And when you've got a team that sits and we have 22 offices, I have people in 19 of those 22 offices. Wow. And how do you connect the dots? And in a firm large like ours, making sure that partners are connecting the dots as well. So those are some of the big ones.
They are big.
They are big. No problem. We'll solve them by next week.
But I think that cultural nuance is really interesting as well with the globalization piece, because every single office is different, and you've got to really take on board, the cultural nuances and make sure that you are allowing people to be authentic in their own way as well, haven't you? It's quite challenging.
Yes. Very challenging. Opportunity. And that's where that's an opportunity. It's where I guess the pom-poms and the positive Kelly comes in. Is this is all opportunity for growth, for us to continue to grow as an industry, to grow as a team. Yes, there are challenges, but that silver light, those challenges always create opportunities for us to go try something new, try something different, or really kind of come in and prove our value and add that +1 for the attorneys. So lots of opportunity.
Yeah, good. And so what about words of wisdom from Kelly, thinking she's going to be a hockey player, to spending some time in China, to present day? What words of wisdom have you got for the people out there?
I feel like my golden nuggets back. Nothing replaces hard work. And it is, as you continue to climb the career ladder, I don't think it ever gets easier. Yeah. It's different. It's just never easier. That would be one. The second would be yourself. I do think I am in this role because I am Kelly. Could somebody else do this role? Absolutely. Right. I am absolutely replaceable, pom-poms and all. But I think that in order to be successful and truly be fulfilled with the job that you do, it's really important to bring your whole self. And then the last piece of it is you gotta have fun. Sometimes we get so serious in these jobs, and there's a lot going on in the world today. It's being able to laugh and surrounding yourself with a really good team that is going to work hard, but they're also going to have fun and share the highs with you. So those would be the three things is, and if you're in a spot, and we didn't touch on this, but the culture piece of really staying true to yourself and making sure that you find your home that makes you happy. And if you're not, there's opportunity to find a home that is really going to make you thrive and make you get to that next level.
Yeah, love that. Love all of those points, particularly enjoying the environment you're in and making sure that you're in a place where you can be your true authentic self, which makes everybody happy, doesn't it, at the end of the day? You don't want to be pretending to be anyone else. And I also loved your element around questioning behind the questions. I think that's a really good point. And, always thinking, what value are we adding in a firm all the time. Kelly, I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. I've absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share this.